Today is Tuesday, July 26th. My name is Jennifer Heidinga, and this is Wilderness Wanderings. Today our text comes from Psalm 60. You have rejected us, O God, and broken our defenses. You have been angry with us. Now restore us to your favor. You have shaken our land and split it open. Seal the cracks, for the land trembles. You have been very hard on us, making us drink wine that sent us reeling. But you have raised a banner for those who fear you, a rallying point in the face of attack. Now rescue your beloved people. Answer and save us by your power. Psalm 60, verses 1 to 5. The backdrop of Psalm 60 is that of David and his army, who fought and gained victories against the armies of Mesopotamia and Syria of Zobah at the start of 2 Samuel 8 and 10. Then Joab, the commander of David's army, returned with his men and killed 12,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt in 1 Chronicles 18. Yet David begins the psalm with lament. Why would David be voicing such lament when in the biblical narratives they had gained victory over the enemy, not just once, but against several nations? Well, there must have been some measure of defeat in the midst of their victories, because David knew that when the Lord fought for Israel, the victory was assured. If there was any defeat, it was likely a sign of God's displeasure. So David appealed to God, who he believed to be not the immediate cause of their defeat, but the ultimate cause. David asked God to restore the nation of Israel to himself. Worse than defeat was a sense of separation from God. Relationship with God always must come first. We too must release everything that we have placed in front of God and trust in Him alone for our provision, our safety, and the hope of our future. Even though David felt that God had cast off and broken Israel, he continued to fly the banner of trust and faith in God. In Exodus 17, Moses stood atop a hill with his arms lifted up and the staff of God in his hands. As long as his arms were lifted, the Israelites were winning the battle. That day, the Amalekite army was defeated. Moses built an altar and called it Jehovah Nissi, that is, the Lord is my banner. So the concept of the banner was connected to Israel's reliance on God and how God claims victory for his chosen people. In verse 5, David calls the people of God his beloved. This comes from a Hebrew word which belongs to the language of love poetry. It appeals to the strongest of bonds, to the most passionate relationship. Despite the present defeat, David appeals to God on behalf of God's beloved people. Their rescue will be found in greater trust in and deeper relationship with God, not in questioning and doubting his sovereignty and his ability to defeat the nations. Verses 6 to 8 claim God as the ultimate victor. His word triumphs over the nations. David understood that God steps forward and settles disputes with his own authority. The Lord claimed the victory, not Israel. In my own life, I often find that although I aim to teach my children the importance of respect for one another and devotion to God, I still feel the need to be right, to be the one in charge, the one who can put everything in its right place. But that's not my role, nor is it yours. That's God's territory. He will right the wrongs. His word and the working of His Holy Spirit always end in ultimate victory. We won't see every victory on this side of heaven, but God always has the final say. As David finishes the psalm, he writes of his renewed trust in the God who helps. Who will lead me to Edom? Is it not you, O God, who rejected us? For all human help is useless. Just as the psalm begins with a desperate cry to God who had rejected them, Now David claims victory through that same God. David knows that with the banner of the Lord held high and their trust in him renewed, that God would bring victory over the enemies of Israel. We don't need to fight our own battles. We need to lean into our reliance on our God, who has already won the battle over sin and hopelessness, discouragement and discord. As Proverbs 21:31 says, "The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord." Although we can prepare for every eventual outcome and yield every weapon of our warfare that we know, our armor must be that of our complete reliance on and allegiance to God in Jesus Christ. It is in Him that our ultimate victory is found. As you go now, go with the blessing of God. May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you, wherever He may send you. May He guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May He bring you home rejoicing at the wonders He has shown you. May He bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors.